Hey guys, this is Justin. Hello and welcome to another video. And many of you have been asking, where is the Halo content? Can we get more Halo videos? Well, we'll get one today. And this is going to be a bit more off the cuff because I'm talking about a scene I really love from Bungie's Halo work, why it's important to the lore and the series, and why it works so well. But really, what I'm looking at is a small detail you may have missed, even a hardcore fan of the franchise. So let's jump to Halo 3 ODST. For those who, for some reason, don't know, the beginning of Halo 3 ODST coincides with the end of the Earth levels in Halo 2. During the opening cutscene, we see the ODST drop pods launch as a Covenant carrier is slipspace jumping out of the city. This sets up the central premise for the game, with the pods being scattered across New Mombasa. This ship is, of course, the Solemn Penance, the same CAS class assault carrier we see Miranda Keyes alongside Chief and the others chasing in Halo 2. And there is a very nice detail during this scene. If you look closely, you can actually see an Amberclad pull up to the carrier and hitchhike through slipspace, just like in Halo 2. Now, this is a nice detail because, of course, it should be here, but many people I saw after posting on Twitter never noticed this detail. And I also understand that Halo 2 and Halo 3, especially Halo 3, they're spectacles above all else. It seems like Bungie at times didn't even care a whole lot about the timeline, so I understand fans feeling the same way. And actually, moving back to Halo 3 ODST, there's a pretty good example of this. Early on in the game, less than 24 hours after the events of the opening scene, we come across evidence of brutes and elites fighting each other. There's a bunch of dead elites. You, of course, never fight elites in Halo 3 ODST, and you can make up lore explanations for this, but the game is very clearly implying that we're seeing evidence of the Covenant schism. The fact is, however, the Covenant schism would not have started by this point. Master Chief spends all of Halo 2 fighting elites. The second the ODSTs drop to the surface, now the brutes are in charge. Obviously, this doesn't match with the timeline in-game, but it's meant to, I think, make Halo 3 ODST feel closer to Halo 3, and that's probably part of the reason why the cutscene isn't something people think about, even though, yeah, it's obvious. Halo 3 ODST really should be called Halo 2 ODST, but whatever. I do want to go back to the in Amberclad scene, because there's another reason I wanted to bring this up. It is a really good illustration of just how utterly fucked humanity was during the Human Covenant War. Look at the tonnage of the... I'm probably going to call this Forward Unto Dawn at least once in this video. No, I mean an Amberclad, but look at the tonnage of the in Amberclad next to this Covenant assault carrier. You can actually get an even better perspective of this if you break the cutscene camera. Now, I don't know how to do this. Full credit to General Heed. He's done a video using a free camera in this cutscene. I'll link to it down below. I'm going to use just a second of it, but you can see from alternate angles just how much the human frigate is dominated by the massive Covenant carrier. There are some other cool details here. Yes, this is the wrong frigate model. The Forward Unto Dawn is a Charon class frigate, or as Americans would say, a Karen. The in Amberclad is a Stalwart class. What really happened is that Bungie changed the frigate design in every game. There's a Paris as well in Halo Reach. So yes, wrong frigate type, doesn't matter. You can hardly tell from a distance. One really interesting note, however, is that unlike in Halo 3, where every frigate is just the Forward Unto Dawn with the designating numbers, they actually do specifically add the in Amber class to the ship. So I wonder whether at some point they imagine perhaps a close-up of the frigate or something else. I do believe that Bungie didn't see a distinction between their Stalwart design and their later frigate designs. They probably wanted it all to be the same with stylistic differences, so whatever. But yeah, the size comparison is notable, and we'll talk more about just how much of a better ship the assault carrier was than the UNSC frigate, but it's also not a fair comparison. Like, the assault frigate is not the Covenant's version of the UNSC frigate. They had smaller ships, even though it's a significantly higher tonnage, something like a CCS class cruiser is probably comparable. We do see some of those in Halo ODST as well. But the fact is, by the Battle of Earth, and especially as it progressed into Halo 3, the UNSC had lost most of their powerful vessels, with mass-produced frigates making up much of their remaining fleet. For example, we see when it's time to destroy what humanity thinks is the Ark, but is actually the portal to the Ark, they have just 3 frigates to fire at the structure, though perhaps that was also because the larger ships don't perform well in atmosphere. However, Halo 3 really makes it seem like the UNSC has a handful of vessels left. Of course, in subsequent years, they heavily remilitarize and rebuild, but that's not the topic of today's video. So humanity was screwed, but there was really no chance for them ever. Yes, the UNSC frigate is not their most powerful battleship, but even something like a Marathon class cruiser was only just over twice the length of the frigate we see here. Not only were Covenant ships larger, but they were also significantly more advanced. The biggest difference between humanity and the Covenant was the use of energy shield. Now, humanity had a decent response. Magnetic accelerator cannons, or MACs, when fired together or when used by super large ships like Punix or the even more powerful orbital defense platforms, could overwhelm Covenant shields and destroy the ships within. But the Covenant also had many weapons capable of eviscerating human ships in single shots, including most notably plasma lances, which worked at incredible ranges. So often, as we see in books like The Fall of Reach, human ships would get a wave or two of MAC rounds off before being eviscerated by surviving Covenant forces. So we've got larger ships, we've got more powerful vessels by perhaps an order of magnitude. The Covenant also had far more vessels. We don't see the entire Covenant fleet ever, but when they do amass significant forces like at Reach, humanity, even with all available defenses, cannot survive. So yeah, I just think that scene is a really nice reminder of the technological disparity between humanity and the Covenant. In Halo 3, we also have Miranda in the forward on Dawn parked inside one of the Arbiter's ships, and while on the Ark, we hear her say, "The Dawn doesn't have the tonnage to survive this space battle." No, it certainly does not. The other thing I really like about this cutscene, and really Halo 3 ODST and Halo 3 as well generally, is that it provides a great sense of scale. Halo 3 and ODST have some really cool moments where on the ground we experience the might of the Covenant. In Halo 3, one of my favorite scenes is on Savo Highway, where the smaller Covenant cruiser jets overhead towards the dig site. Halo 3 ODST actually turned this up to 11. On the final mission, Coastal Highway, several Covenant cruisers pass by towards the early dig site, and towards the end, we turn a corner and we see one of the assault carriers starting to glass the city. And it just gives such a sense of scale. There is so little humanity can do to fight that thing off. That's honestly one of my bigger disappointments when it comes to the Covenant CSO supercarrier from Halo Reach. You know, the Long Night of Solace, the thing George blows up. It's meant to be a Covenant super ship. You may not realize this, but the supercarrier is 28 kilometers long. That's nearly 5 times larger than an ordinary Covenant assault carrier. The game really does nothing to establish that scale, and I think the design being basically a copy of the ordinary assault carrier doesn't help that fact. Anyway, that's all I got. Let me know what you guys think about the cutscene, Halo 3 ODST generally, and more down below. See ya.